how we treasure the little things in life, do we not? At the same time, don't we all yearn and strive to obtain that which we do not have, and seek larger things just barely out of our grasp? We are born with the desire to become great, to be successful. I am Raskas Taakka, and this is my story. It's been years since I've written about the past, or even written at all. What with these crazy past couple months, but here goes. My mother, Soule Taakka Elaman, was just a simple woman, raised on a farm in the land of Skyrim all her life. As fate would have it, a wounded Imperial officer knocked upon her family's door, desperately begging for rest and shelter. This would later prove to be my father, Elaman, my so-called father. From what I recall of the stories my parents shared with me, he came into the house after being wounded by a bandit ambush. He was the sole survivor of a company of 6. He rested with my mother's family, and by the time his injuries had healed, my father had fallen in love with her. He promised to be back for my mother if he had to return to the garrison in the Empire and report in. My mother pleaded with her father to let her go with him, to escape the simple life she was currently living, a life she would forever be stuck in. Reluctantly, her father agreed, trusting that my father was a good man. Yeah, a good man. A few years later, the two of them were living comfortably well in the Imperial City. My father moved up from an infantryman to legate, reporting right to the general in the area. Through years of living under the White Gold Concordant, however, they both had developed a seething hatred for the Thalmor presence, and despised the elves with every fiber of their being. Every night, they prayed to Talos to bring an end to the Thalmor. Every night, they were met with disappointment. But as they were beginning to give up hope, I was born. My mother had conceived a son, a baby boy, just as they had always wanted. I was born weak and sickly, however. My mother was distraught and cursed at my name, calling me the most heavy burden of her life to bear. I was to grow up in the Imperial City, under the great shadow of my heroic father. I dabbled in many things as a kid, but excelled in nothing. I often remained quiet to myself, lost only in thoughts of what life was like elsewhere. Years passed, and I would come home only to be reminded that I wasn't the son they'd asked for, under muffled, slurred breath. A few days after I had turned 18, my father was involved in one of the most appalling murders the city, no, the entire province had ever seen. He claimed that he was set up, that the men were dead when he arrived, that he received a letter telling him to come to the address. No one believed him. The Emperor of Cyrodiil himself gave my father 2 options: to live in exile or be sentenced to death. My father was stripped of his title and position, tears swelling in his eyes, the eyes of a man who would never show emotion if his life depended on it. We were relocated to Skyrim in a shabby, run-down hut, living in a village where no one knew our name. And what's more, no one even asked. I would help around the town as a farmhand, tending the sheep and cows, or watch and defend the perimeter at nights from local bandit attacks. However, every night I would come home to shouting between the two of my parents. And yet, as soon as I walked through the door, they directed the blame to me. Why did I have to have a son? Why was I cursed with having a good-for-nothing son who can't keep his head on his shoulders without looking up at the sky? If only we had given him up. I came home to this for a year. The only release I experienced was through my writing, but even that stopped. My walls were crumbling down, only ruins left as the dust settled. I decided I needed to leave. So with Marius Septum in my pocket, I grabbed my boots, cloak, and sword I had earned from the night watch, and embarked upon my own quest. A quest of self-acceptance, to find meaning in my life, to prove that I am not a burden to all I encounter, to prove that when I manage to come back to my family, I will bring meaning and happiness and love. I will make them proud.